Caitlin Clark. And it's not even funny. It's not even funny. Like, that is the true rival for Caitlin Clark. I remember making a video before the game happened where JC poked her in the eye. And by the way, like, I've heard nothing but good things about JC as a person. But this is just basketball rivalry. And I would never mind seeing JC Sheldon as a member of the Indiana Fever at some stage. Why? Because at the end of the day, she'll.
The Chicago Sky have acquired J.C. Sheldon, and the move immediately reframes their rivalry situation with the Indiana Fever. The Angel Reese era gave the Sky a storyline with Indiana, but Reese's departure left a gap there. What replaces it may actually be more authentic. Sheldon and Caitlin Clark carry genuine bad blood that dates back to their college days.
She hustles almost as much as Lexi, albeit she is kind of almost a dangerous player. She's almost a dangerous player. Like, she was diving people's knees last year, even when Caitlin wasn't on the floor, which is something that I hate seeing. I hate seeing that in basketball, like diving at the knees. Like, those hustle players that dive at the knees is something that I just don't like to see, but I know some people love it. I am still on the petition of if you dive on a ball and you miss the ball.
The Ohio State program Sheldon, Courtney McMahon, and others had a real animosity toward Clark, and that tension never fully dissolved. That history makes Sheldon in a Sky uniform one of the more naturally compelling matchups on the schedule when Indiana comes to Chicago. Sheldon plays with an intensity that draws comparisons to Lexi Hull, relentless, difficult to handle, and willing to throw her body around. That last part is also where she draws criticism.
If you dive on a ball, and you miss the ball, and you get your opponent's leg, it should be minimum flagrant one. It's like getting hit diving at someone's knee should be the same as a hit to the head, where it's like, even if it's not intentional, if you end up going through someone, it has to be a minimum flagrant one to stop people recklessly diving at people's knees. But yeah, this is a big signing, or a big trade, and the Chicago Sky, look, everyone's saying this is the worst trade ever.
There were moments last season where she was diving at players' knees, even in situations that had nothing to do with Clark specifically, which is the kind of play that generates controversy. The argument being made in some corners is that reckless dives that miss the ball and make contact with an opponent's leg should carry an automatic flagrant foul, similar to how incidental head contact is penalized regardless of Tominess play. Intent to discourage that style of play. It's a legitimate debate, but it hasn't changed anything yet. On the trade itself, the Sky sent Aaliyah Edwards plus a second-round pick and a 2028 pick to acquire Sheldon.
Look, it just depends on how good the Sky are next season. It does, because the Sky have two 2028 picks. If it turns out the Sky are... honestly, the Sky might be banking on the Dream going to shit. Like, that's what it seems like. The Sky are fully banking on the Atlanta Dream imploding. And if it turns out the Atlanta Dream go to shit, then somehow it seems like...
Reactions have been harsh, with many calling it the worst trade in recent memory. Whether that verdict holds depends almost entirely on how good Chicago ends up being and on what happens to the Atlanta Dream. The Sky's projection for 2028 picks is built on a specific gamble, that Atlanta implodes. If the Dream fall apart, those picks carry more weight, and the trade looks significantly smarter in hindsight.
It seems like it'll be the smartest thing to do. If the Atlanta Dream implode, then this trade is way smarter than people thought. It's just everyone just assumes the Sky are going to be shit. Everybody just assumes the Sky are going to be a really bad team, which is obviously where the pick being traded is the biggest disaster ever. The only thing I will say is that it's one of those things where
if Atlanta stabilizes, Chicago gave away real value for nothing. Most observers are assuming the Sky will be a mediocre squad, which is exactly the scenario that makes dealing future picks dangerous. But looking at their projected starting five, Skylar Diggins, J.C. Sheldon, Ricuna Williams, Azura Stevens, and Camila Cardoso, an 8th seed isn't unrealistic. That's not a bad team.
Where if this is a top 8 pick, it's going to be a tough one. But I don't hate J.C. Sheldon. It's just basically, so JC Sheldon, what did they turn Aaliyah Edwards into? I think it was JC in a second. So they turned Aaliyah Edwards into the pick next year for what you call it. Next year's pick.
It's a functional team with enough to compete. The ripple effect lands hardest on the Washington Mystics. Chicago's refusal to tank complicates Washington's draft positioning significantly. The pick swap with the Sky in 2027 was looking like a path to lottery gold, potentially the first overall pick.
What was it for Aaliyah Edwards? JC Sheldon, was it a second round pick next year and then a 2028 pick, which isn't the worst thing in the world. It's not the worst thing in the world. But yeah, I don't hate it. And also, if you guys don't understand, for Chicago, it means that pick swap in 2027 is probably not going to convey. Like, they have their own pick in 2027. Like, everybody talks about Chicago like they don't have their own pick next year. They do.
That calculation has now shifted. The Mystics won too many games last year to rely on their own pick being high enough. And with Chicago no longer guaranteed to be terrible, the pick swap may not convey at all. Washington could end up needing to use their own, pick a pick that isn't especially strong while missing out on what would have been a premium asset. The 2027 draft carries extra weight because of Juju Watkins.
They have their own pick in 2027. Like, everybody talks about Chicago like they don't have their own pick next year. They do. They absolutely do. It's just, if their pick is worse than the Mystics pick, it's not going to convey. Or it's not going to convey. So what's happening now is that the Sky aren't tanking. And the Mystics are going to have to go into full tank mode. Like, the Mystics, I think, were trying to go for it. That was my theory, is that the Mystics were trying to go for it. Or the Mystics weren't trying to go for it. And that's why the GM got fired. The GM was like, you know what? Yeah, we can go for it.
Outside of her, the other top prospects have notable question marks. Missing on that pick, especially Juju specifically, changes the rebuild timeline in a meaningful way for any team counting on it. For Chicago, the bottom line is straightforward. Jeff Pendergast now has the roster he chose. The Angel Reese situation made evaluating his decision-making difficult because the circumstances were complicated.
You know, it is also working off the assumption that Sophie's back. I think everything I said in the video is that the reason why it's stalled is because they need to see how much money they can give her to sign somebody else. I'm guessing that the final piece to the Fever are going to make one more. I'm not going to call it a splash signing, but like, they're going to make one more signing that's like one more rotational piece signing before the draft. But Sophie, I have a feeling it's going to be another special season, so I'm excited to get things started and, of course, keep playing in front of the best fans in the WNBA. So let's take a listen to what the Fever...
That excuse no longer applies. If this group underperforms, the accountability is clear. If it works, if the Sky are competitive, if Atlanta stumbles, and if the Caitlin Clark matchups deliver the kind of intensity that the Sheldon rivalry promises, the trade looks like a calculated bet that paid off. The Sky are betting on themselves more than they're betting against the dream.
Fans in the WNBA. So let's take a listen to what the Fever have said.
Sophie Cunningham's return to Indiana provides the Fever a key boost at guard depth, bringing back one of the league's premier shooters and instant momentum swingers in the WNBA. Due to injuries, Cunningham was never able to fully display what she was capable of in year...
I mean, we can say that, but like, until she picked up that last injury, obviously she rolled her ankle twice, but until she picked up the knee injury, like...
Whether that confidence is warranted is the question the season will answer. Sophie Cunningham is returning to the Indiana Fever on a one-year contract, and the signing carries more weight than a simple roster confirmation. The sticking point in negotiations came down to length of deal rather than money, and once that was settled, everything fell into place. The Fever's official statement framed the re-signing as a key boost to guard depth, describing Cunningham as one of the league's premier shooters and a momentum swinger.
Rolled her ankle twice. But until she picked up the knee injury, like, there was a spell of maybe 8 or 9 games where Sophie Cunningham was the Indiana Fever's second best player after Kelsey Mitchell. Like, there was a spell, like, for a large chunk, when she took over as the starter from Lexi, even before that, there was a legitimate spell right after the Commissioner's Cup before her injury, where she was easily the third best player on the Fever. There was like a decent spell where I felt like she was the second best player, because it was like, and she didn't have a bad game. Like,
That description is backed up by what actually happened on the floor last season. Despite rolling her ankle twice early in the year, Cunningham hit a stretch of play between July 11th and August 15th where she was the best three-point shooter in the entire WNBA, shooting 53% from beyond the arc with a minimum of 30 attempts over that period. During a 1-5 game window in that run, she was arguably the second-best player on the team behind Kelsey Mitchell, posting scoring lines of 14, 16, and 18 points on shooting percentages of 80%, 62%, and 50% from three in consecutive outings. The knee injury that eventually shut her down was the only thing that interrupted what was shaping up to be the best extended stretch of her career.
It was like, and she didn't have a bad game. Like, if you look at her game log before she got injured, look at this stretch of games. 8, 14, 16, 18 on ridiculous shooting, by the way. On stupidly good shooting. 80%, 50%, 62%, 50, 50, 50 from three. Like, that is what she did until she got injured. So 8, 14, 16, 18, 8, 17, 6, 12, 5, 15, 15, 12, 11, 13, 16. From that, in that huge spell, until she got injured, she was...
Her value is not limited to shooting. The Fever's statement specifically highlighted her aggressive defense, her ability to force turnovers, and the way she supports teammates physically when the situation demands it. On the defensive end, the criticism around her inability to guard speed is fair, but she is a disciplined defender against crafty, deliberate players, the type of guard who reads schemes and changes angles rather than blowing past defenders. That is a specific and useful skill set in playoff matchups.
From that, in that huge spell, until she got injured, she was easily the third best player on the team. Because again, Caitlin was only healthy for 3 of those games. She was easily the third best player on the team. So I know we were saying, we didn't get to see the best of Sophie Cunningham, but there was like a 15-game spell where she was playing the best basketball of her career. Because like even when in Phoenix, when she was averaging more points, they were on bad teams.
One in Indiana. 2 May ankle injuries kept her from getting off to the start she wanted.
The one-year structure benefits both sides. From Indiana's perspective, it preserves cap flexibility ahead of what is expected to be a significant offseason. Caitlin Clark will be eligible for a supermax salary increase under the new CBA, and the roster will need to be rebuilt around that number. Signing players to long-term expensive deals right now would create serious problems 12 months from now. The front office appears to have learned from previous years, when committing too early to certain roster pieces proved short-sighted.
One in Indiana. 2 May ankle injuries kept her from getting off to the start she wanted. And then, quite simply, she morphed into perhaps the league's best shooter over more than a month's time. From July 11th through August 15th,
Yeah.
Cunningham shot an absolutely scalding 53% from the three-point
Yep. Led the league, and I wouldn't be surprised if she's on close to $1 million, by the way.
line. She was the top three-point shooter in the WNBA over that time, with a minimum of 30 attempts. The unfortunate
Trading away draft capital that could have secured cost-controlled young players for several seasons remains a decision that still stings in hindsight. The rest of the new additions follow the same philosophy. Monique Billings has historically been undervalued relative to her production and is likely on a budget-friendly multi-year deal.
of 30 attempts. The unfortunate injury bug was the only thing capable of keeping her down in 2025. Cunningham is well known for her lay-it-on-the-line, fiery style of play. Whether that's knocking down threes on offense, forcing turnovers with her aggressive defense, or not being afraid to have her teammates back.
Wow, the Fever said that? Wow, okay.
Cunningham brings back an unmistakable
Ty Harris is coming off a full season loss to injury and is probably on a one-year prove-it contract, with an opportunity to rebuild her stock under Stephanie White before hitting the market again. The next move for Indiana is expected to be one more rotational signing before the draft. Temi Fagbenle has come up in that conversation, and her length would address a genuine need.
Cunningham brings back an unmistakable relentlessness to the Indiana Fever. She truly is one of one. Welcome back to Indiana, Sophie Cunningham.
Yeah, like that's a big re-signing. That is a big re-signing in my opinion, and it's all sorted. So Like Sophie Cunningham being re-signed just means that everything's sorted. We don't need to worry about anything.
But with Cunningham confirmed and the core group intact, the foundation is set. This is a roster that came close last season while undermanned and injured for long stretches. Running it back healthy with a full season of chemistry already built puts Indiana in a very different position heading into 2026.